Hello, one and all. It is I, CD, or the Dark One, and welcome back to the Dark Library. And it is time for more Mushoku Tensei. Applause. If you're watching this, I hope you're applauding, although I doubt anyone's actually watching this. Anyway, as you can tell from the title, I'm combining two volumes, unlike any previous time I've talked about the series. I'm going to be combining volumes 13 and 14 here, because I want to get them both out of the way so I can talk about volume 15. That's the main reason, although in all honesty, not a lot happens in 13, and I can't justify making a full video on it by itself. So, yeah. Let's talk about volume 13. In all honesty, if I could describe volume 13 as anything, it would be the follow-up volume. This is very much following the aftermath of what happened in volume 12, dealing with Roxy's addition to the family, the loss of Paul in a way, as well as the current status quo of the Grey Rat family. And this is very important. We wouldn't care about the status quo of a family if, it wouldn't care if the status quo is endangered if you don't know the status quo. So having a moment to take a breather and see how our characters are in the moment and spend a whole volume with that is pretty cool. And I honestly think it's pretty cool that we can actually have this in the series. And yes, this isn't the first time we've had a volume like this, but those have still had meatier chunks. This is just the first one that I think is just, here's the daily life of Rudius. And it very much feels like that. So we also have the birth of Rudy's first child, as we had that at the end of last volume, but we're going forth and dealing with that in this volume. And yeah, it's a great moment of change for Rudy as a person, as he gets used to his life with his two wives. I almost said wife there, but you just say two wives, as well as his connection to his friends. And yeah, that's basically it for this volume. It is important stuff happens, but it's not super duper important, or at least it's stuff to lay the groundwork for stuff to happen later on. Like Rudy teaching Norn how to fight with a sword, the family getting a pet in the form of a treant, and Roxy becoming a teacher at the school. Yes, important stuff is happening, but again, it's stuff that can be said in a sentence is brought up like for a chapter in the book itself and moved on to the next subject matter, and that would just be me telling you the chapters of the book. In all honesty, this is the chapter where Rudy gets a pet treant. It's the chapter where Roxy becomes a teacher. Yeah, that basically would be it if I did this as a full video by itself. And again, like I stated earlier, it's good and fine that we have this as a volume, just a quick. It's still full book length, but just essentially, honestly, all these are quick reads, but essentially a quick storyline to set up the status quo of the Grey Rat family now and have them have some normality for once in their lives. Again, this is important to show us what the family is like during normal times, so that once those times are threatened, we know what is at stake and what can be lost. And that's all Volume 13 is. Again, could not justify this by itself as a full video. While I could stretch 14 into a full video, not gonna lie, it's a lot easier to do it this way. Now on to volume 14, which broadens the world a bit, but deals primarily with the Nanahoshi stuff. So the volume actually starts off with the game visiting Paragus' floating fortress. I haven't mentioned Paragus yet because he's very much an important background character, lore stuff that I wanted you to discover in the actual reading, because he didn't really come up as a character until right now. It's kind of funny. So for those of you who don't know, for quick reference, he's essentially one of the world's strongest people. And he's one of the 7 heroes who defeated the demon god Laplace, who's a major backstory element, and least some elements that we also get found out about in the next volume too. But Laplace is very much a background character who does not even show up in the current Mushoku Tensei series, but may show up in the potential sequel series that may or may not be coming out. We don't know yet. Anyway, Paragus is essentially an immortal dragon god who defeated the demon god and is now waiting for his eventual resurrection in his flying fortress with his familiars. He's acquainted to Nanahoshi and Orsted, and so one day he asked Nanahoshi to visit his airship, and well, Nanahoshi invites all of her Sifley people she communicates with. I doubt Nanahoshi will call anyone besides maybe Rudy as a friend, but the people that she talks to come along with her. So this includes Rudius, the princess, obviously Sylphie comes because the princess is coming, Luke is coming because the princess is coming, Annalise, I forget his name, Cliff is coming, and damn, why did I forget his name? But I actually love him as a character. Shit. The prince. They're all coming to the Flying Fortress. And so it's honestly kind of funny. Roxy attempts to come with them too, but Laplace Prairgus hates demon races, so he says no. Which is kind of sad, so that means Roxy's out for most of this volume. Anyway, the most of the volume is dealing with Rudy trying to figure out this Prairgus character and not piss him off so he doesn't get ultra murdered. And then partway through the volume, Nanahoshi is put in a bad condition, and we find out she's dying because of the world's mana. Okay, so basically, mana is like air in this world. It's just a natural background thing, or background radiation in a way. And the fact that it's in everything, but because it's a foreign element to her body, she has no idea or any way naturally to process it. So it's being built up in her body over time and causing her to slowly die. So Rudy basically goes off on a quest to save her and prevent her death, which is basically the major encounter for the series, which leads Rudy to meeting Atofi. I hope I pronounced her name right. I haven't heard it spoken. I've only seen it in text. It's Atofe. It looks like Atofi. I'm going to say Atofi. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, although I won't know, because probably no one's going to reach this far in the video. And again, it's hard to say what this word is outside of text. Anyway, Atofi is one of the demon lords, and she's actually the sister of another demon lord Rudy had met earlier in the series, but we won't talk about him yet. And she is essentially the main antagonist for this volume, and it's an interesting one. And she's not super hostile, but very self-serving. If I had to put it in a way, it's kind of like Power and Chainsaw Man, but less dickish. If you know Chainsaw Man, you know what I mean. Anyway, she's self-obsessed and is never wants to have the wrong opinion. And this leads to an interesting fight, as she essentially wants to take Rudy in as one of her vassals. Unfortunately, her vassals have to stay on the guard for 50 years and only get 1 day of vacation. So Rudy, this is kind of bullshit and wants to leave. But yeah, that leads to the interesting conflict that she's an incredibly powerful demon lord and Rudy has to avoid being taken in by her. This also leads to big fights and also, again, the major emotional complex of Nanahoshi. It's really, really interesting to see this take on isekai, as most isekai are stories where people get whisked to another world and absolutely love their time there, and very rarely do we see the emotional trauma of being whisked away from your home and what that does to someone. In Nanahoshi case, it leads to her rejecting the world, especially because it's a medieval fantasy world, and she's used to modern day Tokyo, or no, modern day Japan, so obviously she ends up hating it. It's kind of interesting to see her and Rudy bounce off each other in this kind of conflict of isekai victims, with Rudy embracing the world and getting over his past trauma, and Nanahoshi desperately wanting to return to her former life because obviously this isn't the life she wanted for herself in this fantasy world, and also the fact that living here will slowly kill her. Yeah, and that is it. Yeah, as I said, these are pretty short. They're not short, but these are pretty short to describe because, again, one's fairly simple and the other one's slightly more complex, but also fairly simple. Yeah, well, if I had to say, Volume 14 is the bigger of the two because it has a bit more to meat to chew on it, especially with the look at isekai in an unfamiliar setting. Again, most isekai works, you're used to them embracing the new fantasy world and not caring much about their past life. A lot of them are getting around this by giving the isekai victim trauma from their past life, like Rudy here, and so they get over in the new world and just live their new life. But we also see the person wants to return to their previous world because their previous life was pretty good, and they just want to go back to that old way. And again, that's a pretty good look at it. But again, I just want to get these two out the way, because Volume 15, if you know Mushoku Tensei, and you know light novels, you know what Volume 15 is. And that is next. I mean, obviously not next, we have another Kamen Rider thing to get through before we get to that, but that's the next Mushoku Tensei video. So I look forward to that one as Kamen Rider. I said Kamen Rider by accident. As Volume 15 ramps up the plot, and boy oh boy, I needed that after 2 rather slow volumes. So yeah, that is it for this video. I hope all of you are having a good day, evening, or night, whatever time you're watching this video. If you made it this far, I thank you. Links below if you want to read some books. I mean, hopefully you want to read some books as you're looking at a book video review video. I I have some personal books out on sale. One is a Kamen Rider inspired series. One is Super Sentai, or more accurately, Power Rangers inspired series. And one are two fantasy novella series that I call light novels, but they don't have any pictures. I'm sorry to say, that's not in the budget right now. So yeah, there are other books down there too on the Amazon page or wherever books can be sold for 2 of those series. So with that, I'll see all of you guys next time. And yeah, until next time, everybody.